dig into some of the fatherhood things. And so if you give me 1 second, I'm gonna bring somebody on and we're gonna kind of chop it up a little bit deeper on that and kind of take it from there. 1 second, hold on.
What's going on, man?
Hey, what up, cuz?
You have to forgive me. I just got out about the gym, man. So I'm out of breath. I got the pre-workout still in me and stuff, man. How you living?
Hey, I'm good. I'm good. So I see you charged up, huh?
Oh man, too charged up, dog. Too charged up. When you get that pre-workout in, you ain't never got enough. How you feeling?
Right. Oh man, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. But right when you got in, I was talking to one of my homeboys. I almost hesitated to call him my homeboy because I ain't want to be on the chopping block. But that's my homeboy. That's my dog. And so last week we ended up touching on a lot of racial issues because of everything that's been going on and the racial tension in the area. So we was talking about that. And he kind of had a very opposing view on the entire situation. So he ended up being the what do you call it? Sacrificial lamb. Because they definitely put him up on the cross, man, and tore him up.
His ass.
Yeah, they tore him up. And so I was giving him an opportunity to kind of recap some of the stuff that we talked about last week. But I do want to dig into, while I got you, man, what I really want to address is some of the things from a father's perspective. With everything that's going on, I feel like, well, one thing that he said is that he feel like fathers are important. That's the anchor of the household, and that structures the Black community. And so I don't want to take away from that. If they disagree with everything, I definitely agree with that portion.
Right.
And with that being said, I kind of wanted to dig into that a little bit more. And I want to dig into it from I think where I want to start that's going to bridge that gap is I want to start with the topic of the talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know for me growing up, I was given the talk and I didn't even realize it was the talk when I was giving it. I thought it was just, look like look both ways before you cross the street. Like my mom, my parents, they told me basically, this is how I got the talk. They told me basically like, I think I must have been a teenager. And they told me if I'm going out and we riding around, or if I'm riding around, if I ever get pulled over by a police officer, make sure no matter where he pulls me over, I stop on the main road. Don't stop on the side street. Make sure whenever I stop, and this was 20 years ago, they told me make sure I stop on the main road. Don't stop on the side street because you want to always make sure you have witnesses of everything going on. That would kind of force the police officer to kind of fall in line. And then I had occurrences where I got pulled over by police officers for no reason. I was not issued a ticket. I was held at gunpoint. I was 16 years old. And they said that we had fit the description for a crime that took place in the area. And the description was a very broad description. It was a description of like a 5'9" to 6'2" Black male. So broad. It was like 3 of us in the car. So the description could have been anybody. Like, yeah, we fit that description, but that description could have been anybody. And how do we even know that a crime took place in the area? Like, how do we know that that was a real situation? Like, we didn't hear it on our radio. We didn't have any radars that went off. So the only thing we know is get home safely. Like, don't talk back to the police. Don't make any don't move fast. You know what I'm saying? Stay as still as possible. Yes, sir, no, sir. And get home at night. That's kind of what we was taught. And I noticed that in other cultures, I've heard people like get pulled over by the police and be like, this is bullshit. You can't pull me over. And I'm like,
talk all kind of shit.
I never even thought to like pop up on the police like that. Like, I didn't even know that I have the ability to tell the police something like that. I'm just trying to make it known. They got all the power in that situation. So have you ever had the talk? Anybody had the talk with you?
And you want to know something crazy? It's interesting that you brought that up because I'd say about 4, maybe 5 years ago, I made a meme. It was a piece of artwork that was already made. I forget the guy's name. I made a meme and I put the talk as I had gotten it, as a lot of my homeboys had gotten it, what we get from our parents and how different it is from the average person. This was after Walter Scott. Matter of fact, this meme put me on CNN for the first time. And this was like 5 or 6 years ago. But it was a sit down between 2 parents and a young boy. And they basically telling him, like, we're not telling you right and wrong. We telling you, like you said, get home safe, come home alive. So I look at it like this, man. I got a little boy now and a little girl. I understand that our Black skin counts as 2 strikes in a lot of people's eyes. And then we also understand with a lot of these cops getting off with shit, it kind of gives a lot of others green lights when they got this badge and they got this gun and they having a bad day. They grew up getting bullied. Some black dude and fuck their wife. Whatever it is, they out here able to police with those types of emotions. Some of it is racist. Some of it is just motherfuckers just got like, insecure and they get to go take it out on somebody. Right. So with me and my kid, it's like I don't want them growing up afraid. You feel what I'm saying? I don't like fear mongering. I don't like, be afraid. My whole talk was from my mama, she's just like, be smart. Don't you dare go around here afraid to look at a cop in his eyes. Right. Don't you go around looking at anybody, white person or whatever, as your default authority, because sometimes with the talk, that's what we get kind of instilled in us. But be smart. If you know what part you play in all of this and you know you are a second-class citizen in a lot of people's eyes, then make sure you make it to the courthouse and then you get justice. Then you can grow up, get your money up, get it behind politicians, run for office if you want to, something like that. But you can't try to win the battle and lose the war. So that's how, even as a young man, it was like, yeah, for sure, in the moment, you dealing with that cop, you're not in control. You're not the one in power. It just is what it is. There's no jury there. He is the jury, the judge, and everything else. But don't you dare internalize that you are, by default inferior, that you are less powerful. You just got to understand your power is right here, as opposed to you brolic and, you want to pop off right there in the moment. Not only do you come home and you get home alive, but you understand how important it is to put yourself in position as a grown-ass man to really make change so the next generation doesn't have to get told this exact same fucking talk. Because that's how it gets, it comes off like that, watch out for massa. Don't let massa see you doing that. It's like, nah, play it cool in front of massa right now so you can burn this bitch down. Right.
And so that's interesting that you brought that up, man, because I feel like, from my perspective, right, I share a lot of things that you share in terms of you got to play it smart. Like when I talk to people today, and especially with everything that's going on, I hear a lot of people say that they have a fear of being pulled over by the police, or they have a fear that something's going to happen to them when they're out running. Like they have an anxiety about those type of situations. Yeah. And I kind of started off by mentioning situations that I experienced where I was held at gunpoint. And it was multiple times I've been in those type of situations. And none of the times I don't have anything on my record. I really don't even barely have a speeding ticket since the time I had a driver's license, to be honest with you. So all of those situations that occurred with me, none of those times was I penalized for whatever the reason was that I got pulled over. And so with that being said, I'm with you. I don't agree with the fear. I don't think that any man should be afraid of another man. I don't agree with that. And that's why the talk to me was one of those things that I was kind of like, I don't know about the talk. Like the talk is something that I experienced, but I don't know if I think it's time for something new. I don't know if that's something that I want to pass along is the talk. We hear a lot of times parents are like, I gave my kid the talk. I had to give my kid the talk. I seen on, I think an episode of Blackish, they went into a little bit of giving the talk. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, I think it's time for something new. I don't think the talk is what we need anymore. I think we need to teach our kids, listen, you know what? Everybody doesn't have your well-being in mind. So be mindful of that. But at the same time, I'm going to equip you with the tools to be able to navigate life, because the police aren't the only obstacle that our children are going to encounter when they're out in the world. It's a lot of obstacles that we train them for, and we don't train them to be as a father. I think that we have to instill a certain level of confidence. I think you have to instill a certain level of courage. Like, I want you to be afraid. Hold your head high. You know what I'm saying? Don't duck your head. Look at people in the eye. I don't care who it is. I don't care what's going on. And like you said, be smart. I don't want you to put yourself in a situation to where you're jeopardizing your health or where you're not going to be able to come home at night. So from your perspective, we both kind of have small kids, and it's way, way too early for them to even be thinking about a topic called the talk. But what do you see that being like for you? Like when the time comes, as they get older, as they getting ready to step out the house or something like that, what you think? How you think you're going to approach that? Are you going to have the talk with them, or what do you think?
I think the whole foundation, no matter who they encounter, is to be a thinker first. So, it may not be a police officer. It may be some gang member or some shit like that. When somebody come up to you bringing heat, like, don't think short term. Don't think ego. Don't think impulse. Think long game. You know what I'm saying? So it's not so much about, it's going to be the talk, but I think we can evolve it. We don't have to erase the talk, but we can build on it. So it's not just the talk, it's also the strategy. It's also the plan. We want to be effective and impactful. We don't want to just survive this. We want to change that for generations to come. So for my children, the whole thing is from day one, I'm talking about, it's not necessarily, hey, when you see a guy with a badge and a hat and a baton or whatever, be this certain way. That's like the tree. I want to address the forest. In any situation, anybody talking to you crazy, anybody disrespecting, anybody threatening harm, this is how you handle it. Of course, there are certain situations where, you know, you got to fight. You got to do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? Don't be out here getting killed, but
Right.
also don't try to place yourself as no martyr for the cause. There's no glory in you dying at age 13 or 14 and just being some memoriam whenever you could have just played it smart, understanding who you're dealing with and understanding that you making it out alive is a win. Some people gonna feel like it's a loss. It's just like, you know, it's kind of trivial where I'm gonna take it a little bit, but fuck it. You see some of these rappers, say Kevin Gates,
Okay.
and in the moment, somebody, I don't know what the fuck happened in that situation where he kicked that girl, but his dumbass acted on emotion, impulse, ego. Everybody looking, so let me put on a certain way. And what happened? He lost years of his life. He lost years with his kids, years with his wife, hella money. Whereas if he had just played it smart, had some level of emotional intelligence and detachment in the moment, he could have won the war, went to court or whatever the case may be. So my kids, I want the whole foundation to be right. Whether they're dealing with cops, whether they're dealing with their teacher, whether they're dealing with a shitty ass boss that's trying to make them forsake their whole fucking career for something, you know, like I want them to be thinkers first and then move on what they thought. They said, you know, a dummy could be the genius. A dummy with a plan could be the genius without one. I don't know if you ever heard that before.
No, it's first time.
I want my kids first and foremost to be scholars in every situation that they move in. That's what I think is going to help them win in the long game.
Okay, let me ask you this to kind of pivot off of that. So I feel like personally, one of the things that we kind of shared in common is that the talk was kind of given to us by our moms. Like our moms gave us the talk, right? And when I kind of look back on some of the history, some of the stories, some of the things that happened within the household, a lot of times, like, okay, let's talk about, I'm gonna take you to a little deeper layer just to kind of understand, make my point. But when you kind of go through the Willie Lynch letters, one of the things that they say in terms of kind of like molding and breaking the slave in is you have to remove that strong father figure away from the phase. Then the second in line, the second oldest in line, you got to beat him half to death. Because when you beat him half to death, but don't kill him, and you already destroyed the father figure, and you beat the second oldest in line half to death, but don't kill him, the mother is going to teach the second, don't go against this person, like stay in line, because the mother has that love for her son that she just prefers from, even if he's going to be in bondage, she prefers for him to be alive than to experience the same fate that his father experienced. And so I feel like when you talk about the lack of a father figure in the household, you kind of get to a point where we fast forward and we end up with the talk. Okay, when you go out with the talk kind of has a sense of fear to it. It kind of has a sense of like, you know what, you have to be submissive to the people in leadership because they have all the power. So I think that one way that you can kind of pivot around that is like, okay, well, today, I don't feel like the same trends are occurring. I feel like you're seeing a lot more fathers in the household at a young age, active, engaged, and empowered, and seeking out information to be the best father that they could be. And so I guess what I'm asking you is, I feel like a father's role a lot of times is like that protector, a provider, and they want to instill certain values in the kid. You know, mothers and fathers, not to put them into too many gender roles, but I feel like sometimes you get certain things from a father that you're not going to get from a mother. And I feel like sometimes if you don't see that, like if you didn't have that, and now you're going through the experience of trying to provide that, like what's your philosophy on how you provide that sense of confidence, sense of you good in this world? Because the world, I feel like, is telling you that you're less than. The world, I feel like, is telling you that you need to play it a certain type of way. But you get that first lesson in the household. So how do you go about teaching your kids and showing them that, listen, don't listen to what the world is telling you. I'm going to tell you what you are here at home. And when you leave out these doors, you're going to have the confidence to do everything that we taught you at home.
I think it come down, man, first off, everything you just said was fact. Secondly, I think it come down to a sense of identity in the household. Two is better than one. So think about it like this, man. When you got one parent that's raising however many kids, even one, but a lot of times it's 2, 3, 4, and you know what I'm saying? In my case, it was 4 kids in the household with one woman. You got 4 kids identifying with one woman who's stretched way too thin because she's doing a job that was designed for 2 by her damn self. So she's trying to go to work and then come home and then be mentally present and then have time for herself and then work on however many hours of sleep, then make $1 stretch, all of these different things. So you got kids who are built on survival instead of built on love, first and foremost. Because before you can even get to having confidence when you go out here to people that don't have your best interest at heart, before you can have them understand where they stand in the power structure, because yes, the policemen are in power right there, but we are in power if we come together, if we do it the right way. So first and foremost, we have to get our cohesive unit together so that what kids are identifying with is cohesiveness. And then whenever one parent is down, the other parent gets to fill in. So they never get the worst of the parents to identify with. You know, if mama needs some time, mama needs self-care, mama needs whatever. Even without needing that necessarily, if she's having help raising those kids, she never gets so broken down to where wherever she's speaking from is a place of weakness. Because, I mean, it's not to come at single moms or anything like that. That's because their shit maxed out in terms of their capacity. So if they're weak, they can't take no more losses. You know, if they're doing the best they can't even be there to make sure their kid know right from wrong and how to move smart. So they telling them the bare minimum basics, get home safe. They can't be there to teach them the ins and outs of the justice system and all these different things, be there with them with their after school priorities or whatever the case may be. So the father, by mere virtue of his presence, gives strength to the cohesive unit of the family and gives a better identity to the kids and instills confidence in the kids because they have so much better to pull from whenever they look into their parents as like, you know, what they're identifying with, as opposed to one parent who's overworked, underappreciated, barely making it, you know, helpless and so on and so forth. Now, specifically to the father, I think we're not all made the same. I'm gonna be real with you, Corey. I think we're not all made the same. If a father is broken, he could actually do more harm than good by being in that household. But let's just work off the default of a man coming in and he doesn't have all these crazy demons to fight. He's not bringing in toxicity and dysfunction and shit like that. I believe a father, especially for a son, could help him identify, because when the son is looking at a mom, I say about age 13 to 14, we start feeling kind of detached. We start feeling like mama raised us to be to this point, but mama can't relate to the shit I'm feeling right now. She don't know how I'm feeling when I'm out here and I got to get my respect in these, you know, such and such, and you motherfuckers trying me and whatever. I believe that's when the father is most valuable, as opposed to when it's a little girl. I think the father's most valuable coming up, so that void is never there for another man to fill. Like, however you want to spin it, 2 is better than 1 in the household. And it translates not just into dealings with the police officers, but dealings in relationships, dealing with the family, dealing on a personal level, not going out here trying to break other people because you broke it. So yes, the father is invaluable, but you know, we don't get promoted. With like, that's not promoted in the media. That's not promoted in the media. So when you got a lot of guys who feel valueless, not even that, they think a lot of dads out here don't want to be dads. A lot of dudes just feel like, man, what's the fucking point? We looking at the household, she feel like she can do it on her own so long as the court make me give her my check. But we have to promote that where we provide more value than just what's in our pockets to the kids. And I think as a whole unit, that's where the real value is. That's where the real power is.
So you touched on something that's definitely a pain point for me. And you said that you don't see it in the media. Like, we don't get that attention. We don't get that right. Spotlight for being fathers in the household that's providing something other than, let's say, Jordans, something like that for our kids to kind of wear and walk around with. Everything right. From a father standpoint, a lot of times it's highlighted as being financial. And so I feel like at this point, the role of the perception, because you have, it's a generation of people, and I don't know what the numbers is. I'm just going kind of off of what I feel, people that I met, but I feel like it's a generation of people that have now grown up, and a lot of people didn't have an engaged, empowered, educated father in the household. When I say educated, I don't mean college. I mean educated from a standpoint of the family structure and how to come into that and approach that in a positive way. Right. So I feel like you have a lot of fathers that are going out there and they don't have examples of how to be a father because they didn't have the father in their household. It's not really positive examples in the media. And so they don't have anything to go on. And then a lot of times, not only is there not positive examples in the media, but I feel like when it comes to a child, a lot of times it's told that the mother, when the baby comes out, the mother automatically must have a how-to, because a lot of times they assume that moms have all the answers. And I'm going to kind of speak from a personal experience. I have been to, since my son's been born, I've been to every single doctor's appointment. I don't think I missed one. Even during COVID-19, we had a doctor's appointment. I was on FaceTime in the parking lot because only one parent go in, right? So I don't think I missed a doctor's appointment. I'm not saying I've been on time, but I don't think I missed a doctor's appointment since he was born. But every time I go to the doctor's appointment, and me and his mom, we're both engaged in everything that he's doing on a day-to-day basis. The questions are never addressed to me. We're there, we're standing. I could have been the person that was there early, right? They wait for mom to show up to ask mom all the questions, but I know the same questions that mom knows. And so I feel like that I'm a little bit different. Like, I don't care what you say or how you do, I'm still going to insert myself into a situation. But I feel like for most people, when they're constantly disregarded and pushed to the side, eventually they kind of feel that role. Like, I guess this ain't for me. I guess I'm not supposed to answer these questions. I guess I'm supposed to defer to mom, and I shouldn't really be as a part of that process, because everybody's telling me through their actions and through how they treat me that I don't need to be a part of this process. What you think about that? Like, how do we flip that narrative? Because it seems like that's a hard system. Like, I've been able to, I'm an aggressive personality, so I kind of just tackle it how I tackle it. But for the people that, like you said, everybody not built the same. Everybody not equal. And that's so some people are going to be a little bit more bashful. They're going to be a little shyer with those situations, and they're not going to assert themselves. When somebody doesn't direct a question to them, they're not going to talk. If they enter a room and they don't get any attention, they don't acknowledge their presence, they're going to stay in the corner. I'm a person, I enter a room, you're going to know I'm there. You're going to know I'm there. But everybody's not like that. And so for the people that are not like that, they're at a little bit of a disadvantage.
Yeah. Let me tell you something, Corey. There's a lot of fathers out here that still need their father. Like, they're still infantile in their thinking. I'm not coming at them. I'm saying they never had an opportunity to develop and see the need to break that cycle and start asserting themselves wherever society doesn't. You know, and stop taking the back seat as a secondary parent when it was 50-50 in the making. And a lot of fathers out here are not really fathers. They're just kind of sperm contributors. I'm going to be real with you here. So they got thrust in, a lot of these guys got thrust into a situation. Not only are they not ready for, the person that brought them into this world wasn't ready for it. Not only did they not have examples, like, they're still needing, not just an example, they're still needing that contribution of a father. You know, again, they were raised by the single mom who unfortunately didn't have the resources. First off, she wasn't supposed to need all these extra curricular resources to begin with. But a lot of guys, they got raised by the streets, they got raised by the media, they got raised by this, that, and the other. A lot of guys still suffering from abuse and trauma they never dealt with. So you talk about coming in and being a contributor for somebody else? No, unfortunately, they were equipped to be able to make a baby, but they weren't emotionally and maturation-wise equipped to be able to raise that child too. So when you talk about, like, kind of being pushed aside and that kind of thing, hell, some guys don't mind that. Some guys, like you said, don't even show up to the damn meeting. Now, for those who, again, are second rate, and I know that feeling, exactly what you're talking about, they go right to the mom. I get the expectations sometimes, because the old school mentality is the father is supposed to be the one out getting the money, the mom's supposed to be the one handling all that kind of stuff with the babies. But exactly how you said, man, see your value outside of just your financial contribution. Right. See your value in your investment and what's going on with the child, from the health to their desires to what they're interested in, everything to just their upkeep, changing diapers, feeding them, that kind of thing, because it goes a long way, not only in the bonding, but again, in that mother knowing that she's got a partner in you. You know, a woman that's fully loved and has complete confidence that a man is on her side, man, she's that much more of I believe this, that much more of a woman. Some people may disagree with that, like, no, she just as much without him. No, I think a woman is fully loved, fully protected, has like a real partner, a confidant by her side, especially in the task of raising a fucking child. I think that amplifies everything that she does well, and that strengthens those weaknesses. So not only do they need to assert themselves because we want to be considered as an equal parent, but again, I think it amplifies the woman. I think it contributes to the child. The child gets to get a great example of what they need to be when they get older. And now you have the cycle being broken. So it's more than just asserting themselves whenever they come to a doctor's visit. Man, I'm talking about all the shit we traditionally leave up to a woman. From checking over how they building little rockets and shit like that with their little shapes, how they drawing their letters, again, changing shitty diapers, getting up in the middle of the night, whatever, man, taking them to the hospital when they sick, whatever the case may be. Just being more invested, man. The value is like 10x. It's not even in one situation. I totally see what you were saying, but I'm saying not just in one situation of, hey, you know, start regarding me so I feel better as an equal parent. Man, that shit like 10x is everything your child is going to feel like they're capable of. And it's going to 10x the kind of mother that's there for your child whenever you're not there.
Right, right. So check this out. I had the conversation at one point. I was talking to some family members, and what I was telling them, they were saying that it seems like as men, to your point, as men get older, they're not prepared for the situations that they put themselves in terms of children, family, relationships, right?
Right,
right. And it was kind of the conversation that it seems like women are mature at a quicker age. And when we talk about maturity, it's not necessarily talking about a career standpoint. It's not from that. It's not being the intellectual capacity to have a conversation. A lot of times we're talking about in a relationship structure, women are a little bit more advanced. They're more mature. They're able to take on that relationship from a different angle. And when I was talking to them, I said, you know what? I think that's something that's kind of taken. It doesn't get taken into account when I hear this conversation. Is that for little girls from a young age, from the time when they're a baby, they're given a baby doll. They're given a baby. So from the time that they're a kid, they're given a baby, and they're taught like, hey, this is how you care for this baby. They're given relationship structure from the beginning. And what kind of toys does the little boy get? He gets the race car. He gets the sports toys. And so he grows up and he's into race cars. He's into sports. He's into all those toys and all those things that he's exposed to at a young age. And especially if you talk about the father not being in the household, he never really got exposed to what it looks like to be a father, to be in that family dynamic. And as a young girl, she was always raised through society, through the toys, through all the cultural norms, that this is what you're gonna do when you get in a relationship. This is how you're gonna kind of structure that relationship.
Right.
And so I think that for a lot of men, they don't even start to think about what it looks like with them being in a relationship until they're an adult. They don't even know what that looks like. And women have that vision from a young age. Like, this is what it looks like for me when I'm in a relationship. And I think that you know, it's a little bit of a cycle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think we have that stigma that, you know, young boys, we don't need to introduce them to too much home ec or family things because that's for girls. But that right there is the relationship development. That right there is teaching them how to be a part of a family versus just being an athlete or whatever that particular toy that they're playing with. And so how do we break cycles of systems that it seems like they have been in place for so long? Because I guess those toys, in my mind, I guess that comes from when women were at home and taking care of the household, and then the daughter wanted to do the same things that the mom was doing, so they created toys to emulate the role of the mom. Well, now that role doesn't exist. The mom is in the workforce, the dad is in the workforce, but those toys still exist. And the toys are not to say that I'm not necessarily promoting give your son a baby doll, but I'm saying don't snatch it away from him either.
Yeah.
That's his first experience of learning to be a father and kind of connecting like that.
It's like little girl's whole identity is wrapped up into how to contribute or build or nurture a family. Meanwhile, little boys, our whole identity is wrapped into things that we like, what we want, what we'll enjoy. And ultimately, when I think it comes to that whole, like, women or girls are mature more than boys or mature faster than anything, I think little girls are raised, little boys are coddled. That's what I think. I think little girls are just held to a higher standard of maturation. I think we both could mature at the same rate if we were both held to the same standard from a young age. But what you see in a lot of families, again, the little boy get away with everything. Boys will be boys and this, that, and the other. But you see the little girl, she better not step out of line. She better not be out here being fast. She better not do this. She better not do that. It's all these rules of etiquette and its expectations when the classroom, when it comes to little boys, it's like, oh, you know, he's an athlete. At least he's getting a C. You know, it's so much bigger, man, than even just what you were talking about. Super facts. Super facts. Little girls get groomed for relationships and families and all this other shit, and little boys don't. But across the board, I just see women being held to a much higher standard in terms of morality and ethics and the whole nine. So yes, whenever we get older, we're behind the 8 ball. That's why you see women who are, you know, educated, way more educated, especially if we're talking about Black women. They're the highest educated, they're growing in employment and entrepreneurship. They soaring past us. That's not a coincidence. Meanwhile, we soaring past them and getting our ass in jail. Granted, there's some over-policing and things like that to take in consideration, but at the end of the day, you see women really just outpacing the fuck out of us in life to the point now on the relationship scene, they're underwhelmed with what they're being presented with. Not to shit on brothers, I'm just going to call a spade a spade. A lot of women are going around here looking for their economic equal. They got a late start. We've been able to pursue our dreams for decades, and they just got rights like 70, 80 years ago or some shit like that. Right. Yet they on the dating scene now, and motherfuckers trying to live off them and use them. You know what I'm saying? So I think not just in terms of being relationship ready, but also in terms of handling emotion and having hard conversation and being able to resolve conflict like an adult, in terms of getting out here and getting it and not getting so discouraged whenever they get that first rejection to their resume or whatever. They just say, fuck it, I'm going to play 2K all day. To, you know, raising kids, the whole nine, man. I'm not saying women are inherently better than men. but I think they have been much better prepared for life than men across the board. But like you said, that's the need for dialogue, discussion, awareness around these things, and also an acute focus on how we raising our children, not to hold a little girl to a much higher standard than our little boy, not to give a lack of nurturing to our little boy that we give to our little girl. Again, we need that to emotionally develop all around, not to just, impose all of these family standards on the little girl, but not the little boy. We definitely, I don't believe that we're exactly the same, but we can absolutely correct some of the disparity between how ready we are for life and things like that if we're talking about really breaking the cycle.
So let me throw this out there real quick. So when you talk about, okay, so I grew up, right? When I was growing up, it was in a community where people fought. It wasn't anything like people fought to the death, but it was a common thing that, if you had an issue, it would probably start off with somebody talking about somebody's mom, and then shortly after that, you scuffling, right? And that's kind of what boys do. And a couple of girls, but mainly that's what boys was doing. And so I also grew up and I was kind of taught and conditioned in self-defense. So like I always had boxing gloves around, I had a punching bag, and I was always conditioned in self-defense. And I felt like as I got older, because I had this training, I guess you would say, my parents would definitely like trust me. Like if you go out, I know he can take care of himself. I know he can defend himself in every situation, right?
Right.
So I've had the conversation a few times talking to other women, and they were saying like, in the event, because I have a son, so I'm not really at that fork in the road yet. But in the event that you have a son that's 16, he wants to go out to a party, and you have a daughter that's 16 and she wants to go out to the party, is there a different standard? And my answer at the time was like, yeah, it's a little bit of a different standard, but not because it's my son and I'm like, yeah, go mess with all these girls versus my daughter, don't mess with these guys. It's a different standard from a security and a safety standpoint. You understand? Right. And so how do you approach that and make it feel like it's equal and you're not favoring one over the other, but it's really not equal in that sense, though? It's not, I don't think.
Well, thankfully, I got about 14 years before I get to that point. Thank God. But, I think we can just be practical about the world, So again, when you're talking to your little boy, you're going to have to speak to him as far as like the influence to join particular gangs. So, he feel like he has some type of community. I don't know, like he belonged to something. And whereas, yes, girls do get in gangs too, but not nearly as much. The pressure is not nearly as much on them to be all macho and not ever let nobody try you and so on and so forth as it is on boys. But then vice versa. A young lady, that the world is going to look at them, or these certain boys going to be looking at them, trying to take advantage. You got to watch their drinks. They got to do this. Yeah, you want your little boy not to get date raped, but we know that most times it's going like our little girl is going to be the target. So it's not about a favoritism type of thing. I think it's just about, look, I want you to be fully aware of what you're getting yourself into. Otherwise, you ain't ready to go out to no party. But when you go out here, yes, there are certain things you can do to protect yourself. I think the biggest thing we can do with our little girls, though, is make them understand that in the unfortunate, God forbidden event, anything was to happen, it's not their fault. Even though we may say, go out here and try to be as careful as you can, make sure you don't walk anywhere without a friend, watch your drink, whatever the case, say no. Like, it's never your fault in case something does happen. Right. And give them the steps to take, because I see a lot of girls who get taken advantage of and they don't know what to do from that point on. So the default is to blame themselves because society is making them at blame. Oh, you shouldn't have wore this skirt. Oh, you should have known better than go to this party. Oh, you shouldn't have had even one drink around guys, because of course they're going to do something if you're a little bit tipsy. I think honestly that's the biggest opportunity for a conversation when it comes to our girls going out to a party, going out to have a good time, is making them understand like there's a difference between protecting yourself and blaming yourself should something happen. So that's kind of the approach I'm gonna take. It's like, yeah, baby girl, you got to make sure you on your P's and Q's to the best of your ability. But God forbid, because things happen. If anything is to happen, these are the steps you need to take. This, like, immediately let somebody know, me, I'm somebody. I'm talking about me. Go from there. And even with our little boy, of course, we want to let them know how it's a zero tolerance policy on anything even blurring the line of disrespecting, being abrasive with a woman or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I don't think the conversations have to be synonymous in order to make sure they know it's no favoritism. I think we can just contextualize properly so they understand.
I got that. And I feel like everything that you're saying is I agree with that to a T. And I know that I've talked to people that have experienced tough situations, and I feel like a lot of times when people go through these situations where they're the victim in the situation, they don't feel comfortable opening up to anybody because of all the things that you said, that society's going to put this pressure on them that this is your fault, you put yourself in this situation, you did the wrong thing. And so when there's that on there and they don't get those conversations, like you said, you don't have those conversations to where they feel comfortable. Like, listen, whatever happens, like I'm equipping you with the tools, but it's not your fault. So now you open up that conversation to where they feel comfortable to come back to you and tell you about that experience. Whereas they might not have done that if you hadn't had that conversation, because they would have kind of went out like, I subjected myself to that situation. I did something wrong.
Right.
This person taking advantage of me. So for sure, I agree with that from that standpoint. And I think that it's probably gonna give me 5 minutes to tell me that the IG live, the hour block, I'm gonna have to reset. But one thing I want to ask you too, man, if you still got a little bit of time, is in terms of teaching your children about business and commerce, like what does that look like? How soon is too soon? You know, I feel like the school system to me teaches kids how to work for a company. It teaches you how to be somewhere on time. It teaches you how to follow direction. It gives you a lot of things that work in theory, but everything in practice is going to be, you're going to be retrained for everything that you do. Even at the college level, it teaches you more from a philosophical standpoint versus an application standpoint. You have trade schools and technical schools that get back into the nuts and bolts of that. But I feel like that traditional, like it was one time where it was kind of popularized to have that lemonade stand as a kid to kind of teach you a little bit about business, teach you how that goes. But now we're in 2020, we dealing with a virtual world. We dealing with some kids making money off of YouTube, playing video games and stuff like that. But is it something that should be taught at the home in terms of teaching kids a little bit of independence? Because I feel like that's the modern day fishing. I feel like before there was a time where people were taught to go hunt, they were taught to fish to bring back food to their family. I feel like the modern day fishing, the new version of that, is being able to taught to create a business, do something that can generate wealth and income. That's teaching you how to work independently. When you go work for a company, you're working for a company that, in my eyes, I frame it as like a commercial fisherman. And you become one of the hands on the boat, and they give you your share of the fish at the end of the day. And depending on your role, you might get more fish than others. So do you teach your kids, do you implant on them that they should be entrepreneurs, or do you teach them to, how do you kind of approach that thought process?
Man, first and foremost, I'm going to teach my kids. Sorry about that. Anyway, first and foremost, I want to teach my kids financial responsibility. I think that's where a lot of people drop the ball with their kids, and they grow up whether you got a business or not. If you don't know how to manage money, if you don't understand money, if you don't understand assets, your business ain't gonna thrive. I don't care how creative you are, how much value you create, you're gonna have a hard time. There's a lot of people out here with businesses, man, that's in the negative, that's going bankrupt left and right. So first and foremost, I want to teach my kids how to have restraint. I want to teach my kids how to understand that they got $50, but they want this, that, and the other. They better go ahead and subtract them bills out first before they give themselves X amount of dollars left over from that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I really want to look and develop my kids' strength. Of course, I love independence. As an entrepreneur, I believe in independence. As you know, I believe in making your own money. But you know, there's a lot of value in working within the system as well. So if my child decides that they don't necessarily want to start their thing from the ground up, because honestly, a lot of people ain't built like that.
Right.
I hope my kids are. You know what I'm saying? That's just me personally. Right. Just like I hope my son is a star football player. But damn it, if he want to play the cello, that's what the fuck he want to play. But ultimately, I want to kind of look and see what are my kids' strengths and how do I develop that to world-class level. You know, if that's being an entrepreneur, having their own business, dope. Some kids, though, have so much talent, they can kind of just understand who they're working with, partner with somebody who can run the business. Meanwhile, they continue to be the creative that they are. So you can have a business and own the business without necessarily being a business owner, like an entrepreneur, a startup creator, or anything like that. There's many ways to go about entrepreneurship. You know, look at Warren Buffett. He don't run shit. Motherfucker's so rich because he bought all these fucking companies. He's an investor. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. So I can teach them money management. I can teach them to understand assets and things like that. But ultimately, I just want my kids to know that they can be world-class in anything they put their mind to. But those asking, just real quick, I've seen a couple people saying, are y'all brothers? You know something? We kind of like cousins by marriage. Like, we actually are. But it's funny because when we was younger, like 15 or so, everybody was like, damn, you look, every time I saw somebody from your side of the family, like, you look just like Corey. And then you probably got the same shit. You look like Derek. So we do look like we related on this thing. But ultimately, that's it, man, because I know some people that have work jobs, man, and got millions from working a fucking job just because they understood compounding interest, because they didn't go out here and buy a lot of dumb shit, because they invested correctly. Some people may consider that entrepreneurship. I don't necessarily, but it's just smart money management.
Right. Hey, cuz listen, it's telling me that we got 15 seconds and we got.
All right, man.
Hey, but then would you want to come back on, or you want to? You got to run. Finish.
I got to run, brother. But great conversation. I'll holler at you, man. Appreciate you giving me your platform for a second.
I appreciate it, cuz.
All right, man.